Pantomime, often shortened to panto. This is a type of musical comedy stage production designed for British family entertainment during the Christmas season. It evolved from the 16th century Italian tradition of commedia dell'arte and the Victorian music hall, blending fairy tales with slapstick humor and contemporary pop culture references. A defining characteristic of the pantomime is its gender-swapping casting convention. The pantomime dame is usually played by a man in drag, while the leading male juvenile character, known as the principal boy, is traditionally portrayed by a young woman dressed in male attire. Not only does a pantomime feature an easy-to-understand plot, it also presents a classic battle between good and evil, where hope triumphs over adversity after despair. Spectators are encouraged to boo the villains, cheer the heroes, and shout iconic call-and-response phrases like "He's behind you" at the performers.
Where is Peter Pan? I know!
Pantomime storylines usually make no direct reference to Christmas and are almost always based on traditional children's tales, such as Aladdin, Cinderella, and Peter Pan. Guard mounting. At 11 a.m. on scheduled mornings, attention shifts to the forecourt of Buckingham Palace, where the official handover of responsibility takes place. The changing of the guard, also known as guard mounting, marks the moment when the soldiers currently on duty, the old guard, exchange places with the new guard to protect the British sovereign. Over the course of the 45-minute ceremony, the two detachments perform precise military drill movements, transfer special orders, and formally hand over the keys to the royal palaces. No ticket is required to watch the ceremony. The music played during the changing of the guard often blends traditional pieces with popular songs of the era. The guards are known for maintaining a strict military demeanor. Tourists often try to make them laugh, but the guards are trained to stay focused and disciplined. If visitors come too close or behave aggressively, the guards may respond with force. Stonehenge Gathering. Every year, thousands of people gather at Stonehenge in England to watch the sun do what it does every day, rise. Built in prehistoric period, the monument of Stonehenge stands as a masterpiece of ancient engineering and astronomical design. The stones were carefully arranged to frame two key solar events, the sunrise at the summer solstice and the sunset at the winter solstice, suggesting that seasonal timekeeping was central to the monument's purpose. The builders assembled the rocks so precisely that at the summer solstice, the sun rises behind the heel stone on the northeastern horizon, and its first rays shine directly into the heart of Stonehenge. Archaeological evidence from nearby Durrington Walls shows that people once gathered for massive midwinter feasts, with cattle and pigs transported from distant regions, pointing to Stonehenge as an ancient hub of ceremonial gathering. Today, English heritage grants rare direct access inside the stone circle during the solstices and equinoxes, allowing druids, pagans, and travelers alike to touch the stones and celebrate the changing seasons. Afternoon tea. This is one of the most iconic British rituals that serves as a bridge between lunch and a late evening dinner. For many people in Britain and Australasia, tea refers to the main evening meal, not just the drink itself. The afternoon tea is widely credited to Anna Maria Russell, the 7th Duchess of Bedford, who began requesting a tray of tea, bread and butter in her boudoir to stave off hunger pains during the afternoon. Although the Duchess could have taken her tea alone, she instead invited other women to join her, transforming afternoon tea into a social ritual centered on female companionship. A traditional afternoon tea is characterized by its distinctive three-tier presentation. The bottom layer features crustless finger sandwiches, typically filled with cucumber, cream cheese, smoked salmon, or egg mayonnaise. The middle tier holds warm scones, which should be broken apart by hand rather than cut with a knife. These are traditionally served with thick clotted cream and jam. However, whether the cream or the jam goes on the scone first remains a debate that still divides the country, particularly between Devon and Cornwall. The top tier concludes the presentation with an assortment of delicate pastries and cakes, such as the classic Victoria sponge. During the Victorian era, the tea table became associated with the temperance movement, which promoted tea as a moral and civilizing alternative to alcohol. Today, afternoon tea is served in hotels, tea rooms, and homes across Britain as a symbol of hospitality and gentle luxury. Sunday roast. The Sunday roast traces its roots to 1485 and the reign of King Henry VII, whose royal guards consumed so much roast beef that they earned the nickname beef eaters. By the Industrial Revolution, the ritual was adapted to become a household staple. Families would place a cut of meat and vegetables into the oven before Sunday church service, then return home to a meal ready to eat, with the meat juices forming the basis of a rich gravy. Working-class families who couldn't afford their own ovens had a clever workaround. They would drop their Sunday roast at the local bakery on their way to church, since bakers didn't make bread on Sundays, and collect it fully cooked on the way home. The meal itself centers on roasted meat, typically beef, lamb, pork, or chicken, served alongside roast or mashed potatoes, stuffing, and an array of vegetables including carrots, parsnips, Brussels sprouts, and cabbage, all brought together with gravy. Yorkshire pudding, now inseparable from the roast, was originally served as a starter rather than a side dish. Its batter, made from flour, milk, and eggs, was designed to fill diners up, so people would eat less of the expensive meat that followed. Before, not everyone could afford enough meat or a fireplace for a proper Sunday roast. That's why a lavish roast was a mark of wealth and abundance. In a 2012 poll of British people, the Sunday roast ranked second on the list of things people love most about Britain. As the tradition evolved, the British Sunday lunch became a cultural institution, and today this hearty meal can be enjoyed in pubs and restaurants throughout the UK. Cricket. In 1929, Stanley Baldwin, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, said, "One could not define what cricket was, as one could not define a gentleman, but one knew it, as one knew a gentleman when one met a gentleman." Cricket is not simply a sport in Britain. It is a cultural lens through which concepts of patience, fair play, gentlemanliness, and national character have long been understood. The game originated in southeast England and was formalised in its rules in 1744. It has influenced the lexicon of the English language, with various phrases such as "that's not cricket," meaning unfair, "had a good innings," meaning lived a long life, and "sticky wicket," a metaphor used to describe a difficult circumstance, originating as a term for difficult batting conditions in cricket caused by a damp and soft pitch. Cricket is a multifaceted game featuring several formats, most notably first-class cricket, limited overs cricket, and historically, single-wicket cricket. The highest standard is Test cricket, always written with a capital T, which functions as the international form of first-class cricket and is limited to the 12 full members of the International Cricket Council. Test matches like this can last 5 days and still end in a draw, which to the outside world appears baffling, but to the British feels entirely natural. Remembrance Day. British Remembrance Day traces its origins to Armistice Day, first observed on November 11, 1919, exactly 1 year after the peace agreement that ended World War I. The armistice itself came into effect at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918, a moment now etched into national memory. World War I alone resulted in approximately 17 million deaths and 21 million wounded across all nations, and on a single day during the Battle of the Somme, July 1, 1916, the British Army suffered 57,470 casualties. After World War II, the British government formally replaced Armistice Day with Remembrance Sunday, observed on the second Sunday of November, to honour the fallen of both world wars. At exactly 11 a.m., a profound 2-minute silence is observed across the United Kingdom. The tradition centres on the red poppy, inspired by the poem In Flanders Fields, which described poppies growing over the graves of fallen soldiers in Belgium. By the end of World War I, nearly 25% of Britain's male population had served, meaning virtually every family carried a personal connection to the loss. That weight of shared grief is precisely why Remembrance Day in Britain is less a public holiday and more a national act of conscience, observed not with celebration, but with silence. May Day. Celebrated on the 1st of May, May Day is a festival of ancient origins that marks the beginning of summer. The tradition can be traced back to Floralia, a festival honouring Flora, the Roman goddess of flowers, which was celebrated from 27th April to 3rd May during the Roman Republic era. May celebrations are also believed to have origins in the Mayuma, a festival centered on the mysteries of Dionysus and Aphrodite that took place every 3 years during the month of May. One of the tradition's most iconic rituals involves men erecting a tall wooden pole, called the maypole, as a symbol of masculine energy, while women crown it with flowers to embody the feminine spirit. As ribbons stream down from the pole, dancers weave around the pole while holding them, intertwining the strands to symbolize the union of masculine and feminine energies. The tradition was condemned by Puritans in the 17th century as immoral and pagan before being revived by King Charles II in 1660. May Day festivities also feature the crowning of a May Queen, the Jack in the Green tradition, and the lighting of bonfires. Although May Day later became associated with the International Labour Day movement, the older folk customs have survived independently in many communities. Morris dancing. This is a form of traditional English folk dancing that dates back to at least the 15th century, though its exact origins are disputed. Performed by groups of dancers dressed in white with bells strapped to their shins and handkerchiefs or sticks in hand, it is closely associated with seasonal celebrations, particularly May Day. The dances vary significantly by region. The Cotswold style is relatively graceful and uses handkerchiefs, while Border Morris is more energetic and often involves blackened faces, a practice now debated because of its historical associations. Morris dancing nearly died out in the 19th century, but was revived by folk music enthusiasts in the early 20th century and has been practiced continuously since. Today, it remains one of the most recognizable forms of English folk culture, commonly seen at village fetes and country festivals throughout the summer months. Cheese rolling. Every year on the Springbank holiday Monday, thousands of spectators gather at Cooper's Hill in Brockworth, Gloucestershire, to witness one of the world's most eccentric traditions. The event features a series of races where a 7 to 9 pound wheel of double Gloucester cheese is sent hurtling down a 200-yard slope. Because the hill boasts a staggering 1 to 2 gradient that is near vertical in places, the cheese can reach breakneck speeds of up to 70 miles per hour. Competitors throw themselves down the precipice in a desperate pursuit. Though the cheese's head start makes it virtually impossible to actually catch. Instead, the first person to tumble across the finish line at the bottom is crowned the winner and receives the very wheel of cheese they were chasing. While the first written record of the event appeared in 1826, the tradition is believed to be at least 600 years old, potentially rooted in ancient grazing rites or pagan fertility rites. The race is notoriously dangerous, often resulting in sprains, broken bones, and concussions, as competitors lose their footing and tumble uncontrollably down the incline. To help mitigate the chaos, local players often stand at the bottom to act as catchers, physically tackling racers to stop their high-speed momentum. Despite being officially cancelled in 2009 due to safety and liability concerns, the local community has kept the tradition alive as an unsanctioned event. Fawkes Night. On the 5th of November each year, bonfires are lit and fireworks fill the sky across Britain in commemoration of a failed plot to blow up the Houses of Parliament in 1605. Guy Fawkes was one of a group of Catholic conspirators who placed barrels of gunpowder beneath the building, intending to assassinate King James I. The plot was discovered before it could be carried out, and its failure was celebrated almost immediately by the public. Effigies of Fawkes, known as guys, are traditionally made by children in the weeks leading up to the night and then burned on the bonfire. Communities gather around large fires, sparklers are handed to children, and the air smells of wood smoke and gunpowder. It remains one of the most distinctly English annual traditions, embedded in both history and the rhythms of autumn. Boxing Day. Boxing Day falls on December 26th, and is observed as a public holiday across the United Kingdom and several Commonwealth nations, including Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. Despite the name, it has nothing to do with the sport of boxing. The holiday is believed to have originated from British traditions of charitable giving. Traditionally, wealthy aristocrats and employers would require their servants to work on Christmas Day to facilitate the family's feasts and gatherings. In return, the day after Christmas, December 26th, was granted to the servants as a day off to visit their own families. As they departed, employers would present them with a Christmas box, which usually contained gifts, bonuses, and sometimes leftover food. The church also played an important role in the tradition by setting out alms boxes to collect donations for those in need. These donations were later distributed on St. Stephen's Day, which falls on December 26th. Boxing Day became an official bank holiday in the United Kingdom under the Bank Holiday Act of 1871. As Victorian leisure culture expanded, the day became associated with outdoor sports such as fox hunting, horse racing, and cricket. By the late 20th century, Boxing Day had transformed once again into one of the United Kingdom's biggest retail events. Today, many stores offer deep post-Christmas discounts on everything from clothing to electronics on this day.